All right, folks, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. I'm going live on Facebook too. So we'll have some fun people on Facebook joining us.
That's awesome.
It's got it. We're live.
All right. We are live and we'll get started here in about 5 minutes. We have Nebraska Enterprise Fund, BC Clark from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and Robert. And Robert, I can't remember what organization you're with. I'm very sorry.
Well, it's Lenoma Financial, M&M Insurance. We do taxes and insurance.
There we go. And so Robert's going to be talking about small business insurance. So we'll get started here in just a few moments.
I like to tell people we're 2 in 1.
Yeah, a one-stop shop, actually, huh?
I try, yeah, Around here in some of the Walmarts, you can get an oil change and get a gallon of milk and buy clothes and jewelry for the night and be okay.
Yeah. Oh boy. I guess we're
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
All right. The sun is shining bright today. That's a great sign.
Help with all that melting snow.
Mm-hmm. Look, I have 12 feet on my deck. 12 inches on my deck.
In our world, day or two before the snow comes, we have to prepare for the upcoming phone calls that we're getting or the visits that we'll be getting for the claims portion. So, yeah.
All right. I was trying to find the time, but I don't think I have it. I think we have just a couple minutes, I believe.
Yep, we have just a couple of minutes. I'll let everybody know when we hit 1 o'clock.
Okay, great. And I'll kick it off. Robert, there's some background noise, so maybe when you start your video, we can just go to mute so that the background noise won't be.
Yeah, sorry, we're in an active office, so there are phone calls and people that walk in and out, so I apologize.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no problem.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started, folks. Welcome, everybody. We have with us today BC Clark, and she's going to give the main introduction to the presentation and tell you about what we're going to see. But before I do that, I just want to say that if you have questions, we are going to hold them till the end of the presentation, and then you can use the chat feature or the Q&A feature to ask your questions. So BC, if you want to go ahead and get us kicked off.
We'll do that. Well, welcome everybody and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm BC Clark and I'm with the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, Director of Training and Client Development. I just want to say that I'm so thankful to you for DoSpace for allowing us to be able to bring this information to you. And we love the collaboration with DoSpace and it's always awesome. So thank you so much, DoSpace. I want to also thank Lenoma Financial Services, who we are collaborating with on this presentation, Robert Mejias. But just to tell you a little bit about Nebraska Enterprise Fund, we are a community development financial institution. We're also, and so we provide a lot of training, technical assistance, as well as loans for small businesses up to 150,000. And when we talk about training, we know that financials are really important. So we do provide QuickBooks, some other financials and marketing as well. And then on the technical assistance, if you are just starting your business or wanting to expand, we also provide to you that technical assistance that you're looking for as well. So with that, I would like to introduce Robert Mejias, who is with Lenoma Financial Services, who's going to talk to us today about insurance and small business. And I have to tell you, I've Robert's presentation and when he gives you the stories on some of these things that have happened with businesses that were not insured to cover all of their assets. So this will be a great presentation for you to take away and to really understand what you need to do to cover all of your assets. So Robert, with that, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, BC. And just as a precursor here, I do apologize. We are in an active office, so there might be some phone calls that may or may not be coming in throughout. Hopefully, we can kind of minimize the disturbance. So if you see that I'm wearing the mask, it's people walking in and out from our location here. But I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for this one.
To be or not to be insured? Well, I guess that's the question when it comes to some small business owners. Hi, my name is Robert, and I just wanted to touch base with you regarding a couple of things here. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides here, but before I do, I just wanted to touch base with a quick background on myself here. I have been involved in the insurance world now for since the year 2004, in and out, only for the fact that I used to work with a particular company doing claims at one point in time.
Robert, if you're talking, you're muted.
And have now moved on to the different side of things, or the different point of things, since claims is considered the back-end product, to the front-end portion, which is the actual writing of the policies, the producing side. So I'm involved with various businesses throughout throughout my time here in Nebraska, and I've come across quite a number of different things, different stories, different scenarios, and just wanted to touch base with why things like this should be one of the number one things that should be out there for any individual, small businesses, big businesses, medium businesses, anything alike. Individuals in general. The world of insurance is an intricate one. However, it's one that's been around now for quite a number of hundreds of years now. So it started with some of the ships coming over from what is known as the old world over to the new world. With the population growth here on this side of the planet, individuals wanted to earn their riches by trade. And because of this trade, the only manner to get this trade over was through ships, porting things from one side of the world to the other. And with the ships, the potential of the ships being lost at sea was a very high probability. So as time went on, individuals started to what they call guarantee that the product or the funding was going to make it to the other side. So chances are that if the product didn't make it, the price of whatever the cost of the cargo was going to be reimbursed to whoever was sending it. So usually that came in the form of a payment, which eventually has been known as a premium at this point. But that's basically the birth of how the insurance world has kind of gone. Believe it or not, transactions like that occurred, over in what's now known as the Lloyd's of London, which is sort of the birthplace of most of the insurance world in general here. But that's a kind of a quick, rough background for those who may or may not know that stuff. But either way, in either circumstance, insurance in general has really evolved throughout this time frames here. So, and it continues to evolve. It's a slow-going world, but it continues to evolve here. But every individual is nowadays inundated with so many different commercials, from the little green guys to the cavemen that go looking for how to go about insuring yourself with things, or the little white duck that walks around quacking all the time, talking about how you can save yourself in terms of monies or funding when it comes time to things here. So whether you're in certain hands that are good or if you're being chased by emus, it doesn't matter what it is. A lot of insurance companies are out there, and they're always looking to try to do one thing, and that one thing is make sure that the person that gains their product is going to be safe and brought back to this state of wholeness in terms of it. So, the question comes about here, whether or not insurance is one of those things that are needed when it comes to small business. But, like I said, there's so many different avenues when it comes to, what is or what can be insured. So it tends to be grouped into these sort of categories. One of them would be considered property and casualty. That's kind of what most people are used to viewing, the autos, the homes, things like that. But it also includes business. And when it comes to the business, there's certain things like general liability insurance, or, things that are out there called workers' compensation, or, what is liabilities when it comes to the product liabilities, or, some kind of property that the business may or may not have, a commercial property, or like an individual, there might be some attorneys or some, legal individuals, doctors, professions, things like that might need to carry certain types of insurance. Even the insurance companies themselves, or particular companies that deal with certain information, something that's very sensitive. There's general insurances like data breaching that you can be covered for. So there's quite an array of various things that may or may not fall under particular types of categories. Another category could be considered health insurance or a life insurance. You either think of health insurance with the various things that are going on nowadays with COVID-19 spreading as a pandemic issue here. But regardless, there's so many different avenues and different companies that abide by one of these type of groups of things here. So we're gonna dive into certain things here, but what is it who is it that we're trying to essentially protect when it comes to this? Well, generally the insured is the person that gets protected on these things. And who could those people be? Well, they could be anybody. They could be the sole owner of a business. They could be people that are employed within the business. They could be outside individuals like independent contractors, or you never think about the actual customers or the clients being insured, but there's a possibility that could be the case, like the general public. And or what about those investors that are out there that want to guarantee that they essentially are covered with their things? So there's an array of groups of people as to who would be protected regarding this stuff. But, again, what is it that, you're really trying to protect when it comes to these things? So for a business, it could be the business property that you're essentially dealing with, or maybe the business itself wants to be sheltered through something in case of a lawsuit, or if you're a manufacturer that makes certain things, you might be some faulty workmanship. Like I said, I'm coming from a world of the claims world, where the company that I worked for had insured the particular companies that were making these deep fryer objects that you would stick a whole turkey into, and those things had quite the number of accidental fires that could cause someone to lose quite a bit of property involved. So a faulty workmanship is one of those things that would fall when it comes to the actual manufacturing of the products and stuff. So you never know what's out there, right? Employee accidents, that's something that could be protected from as well. And obviously everyone's very familiar with auto accidents and how that happens. But, being an employee of an organization, you may or may not think of, that company wanting to protect you in this case, but being an employer of the company is a big time reason why someone would want to carry certain types of insurance. So there's things out there called key employee insurance. It sounds odd, but that is the truth. A loss of a key employee, or income loss. There's quite a number of things that would be out there as to what would be protected. So, and generally speaking, why would anybody want to deal with that? Well, obviously, you want to protect your assets, is what I would refer that to, or in this case, protecting yourself in this regards. Your business or your clients in this case. You want to make sure that everybody's going to be safe, in regards to everything. I mean, think of the pandemic that's going around and how most of the companies are trying to put into place these little practices that are involved. Stay 6 feet away, follow the guidelines that are involved. Well, the underlying reason is they want to make sure that, they don't get hit with any kind of lawsuit as well. So you keep that in mind as well. If you're a small business, you want to make sure that you abide by the rules and regulations too, because you don't want anybody to come after you in terms of any kind of, bad situation there. But anyway, going forward here with protecting yourself, your income, your budget, or whatever type of revenue that's being generated, so much could be said about these things here. But the underlining factor, why do you go into business for yourself, or why do you go into business in general, if not to provide for maybe a different way of life and provide for your family, or maybe you want to leave something behind for your family in terms of a legacy. So you want to be able to do this in order to be able to keep your doors open from anything. I mean, one lawsuit can really, really, really destroy an organization tremendously, or be very famous for that. I mean, who remembers how an elderly individual accidentally changed the way everyone drinks a cup of coffee? Nowadays, when you get a cup of coffee, you don't think about this, but if you just read the label that covers the cup of coffee, it says, "Caution, very hot." Well, that came about because, there was an individual who actually scolded the inner thighs of her body, and because of that, there's been some legal ramifications regarding these things. So, one incident can change the entire world when it comes to insurance. And when I say one incident, like I said, the hot coffee is a one incident thing, but don't forget that there's also a September 11th, 2001 one incident of terrorism that kind of caused the entire world to kind of change too. So keep these things in mind when you're thinking about what insurance really means. And when you have insurance or the thoughts of insurance, you must remember that the true underlying factor behind all of this is protecting yourself from something of a peril, something of a big loss. So when you think of this, the entire insurance world is governed by the 4-letter bad word, and it's called risk. R-I-S-K. Risk. What drives the insurance industry? Risk. How high the risk is, how low the risk is, whatever the risk is involved. So, what is this small business insurance that we're referencing? With small business insurance, it's you as the business owner. You're taking that risk of any kind of situation or circumstance or issue or whatever the case is. And because you want to protect yourself from any kind of damage or loss of some sort, a loss could be from an accident, a disaster, a lawsuit, anything in this regards. What you're doing is you're taking this risk and you are actually transferring this risk. So transferring the risk means you would actually pass it on to a particular company. So you would take this certain amount of money and you would give yourself this opportunity to buy this guarantee that whatever happens, you will be protected for whatever amount of that guarantee is going to be. Again, with the ships coming across the sea, there was a guarantee that they were going to be paid no matter what, whether they lost the entire cargo or not. So I have an example here. Here's an example regarding this to transfer the risk. Why would somebody want to do this? So let's just take this as a quick example here. You have $150,000 per se in some sort of business bank account. Let's pretend you're a contractor in this regards, and you decide to go out there and buy what they call a skid loader, one of those forklift kind of things there for your construction business. You need it. You need to do things like move heavy block or whatever is involved in that. But that skid loader is going to cost you $35,000 to essentially buy. Now, the question would be, should you go out there and get this insured? Well, as a business owner, you make up that decision there. But when looking at things there, if you did not go out and get this thing insured, you would be considered that you would be self-insuring it. You yourself are going to take the reins of the risk that if anything was to happen, that you would be out the $35,000. Or in this case, you may or may not insure yourself for this. So self-insuring yourself, it means that you're going to go out there and you have this money in the bank account. That's fine. Go out there and replace the skid loader. So you first started out with $150,000 and you bought $35,000 to go out there and buy this skid loader. That's fine. If something was to happen and a major, like here in Nebraska, there's tornadoes that could occur. I mean, let's pretend that Mother Nature decides to sneeze and blow this very heavy skid loader, over one or two states. That could possibly happen. I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but it could happen. Well, now you just lost your $35,000. So you have to go out there and you have to replace this $35,000 with another $35,000 skid loader. Well, you originally started with $150,000, and now that you have reduced the bank account twice by the amount of $35,000, you now have a new balance of $80,000 in the account. You decided to self-insure yourself. However, ironic enough, this situation occurred not too long ago where we actually went out and insured somebody for an amount. So this is a fairly close dollar amount when it comes to the premium here. So you decide to go out there and get a quote for a premium, And, with the available deductibles that are involved, you decided that you're going to transfer the risk of this insurance company to take the fall for the $35,000. However, they want to be compensated so in order to be able to do this, and that's considered the premium. So they charge you a certain amount, and usually that certain amount is for a certain period of time. In this case, with that same example of $35,000, just ran a quote here for an individual, and the policy came out to be $798 for 12 months of coverage. So if you look at the same example here, take the bank account, you subtract out the $35,000 that you paid for the skid loader, and now it's going to cost you $798 more. In the case of a loss that's involved, you would have to pay the first portion of it. With this policy, it came with a deductible, and that deductible came in at $2,500. So you would have to pay the first $2,500. But when you turn around and look, the insurance company is going to send you a check for the difference. That would equal out that $35,000. Well, at the end of the day, you're not left with $80,000. You're actually left with $111,000 that's still in the bank. So obviously, when you're looking at something like this, the pros and the cons, there is a what if factor that comes into play. If this happens, then that happens, and vice versa. So you have to look at it as though it's a what if kind of thing. So if you do that, it kind of helps you determine or make a better situation in terms of a decision. However, we talked about certain kinds of insurances here. Well, there is one that's out there also that's called a business owner's policy or business owner's insurance, or in the insurance world they call them BOP, B-O-P. And the way I like to generally describe the BOP insurance is, if you've ever been to a fast food restaurant nowadays, here they like to place numbers to these things. So the local big Mickey D's around here likes to call the number 1, with a burger, fries, and a drink. Well, there you go. That's a good summation of what a BOP insurance would be. It's saying a number 1 off the menu. You don't get to change the kind of burger that it is. You don't get to change the size of the drink. You don't get to change, curly fries for onion rings or anything like that. You get what is on the menu, the number 1, and that's it. So it is a complete, grouped package that gets put into place that, it gives you a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And at the end of the day, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. So that's kind of how you would view this. It's a complete bundle package. There's no interruption when it comes to the insurance. You have a little bit of property coverage in there. You might even have your own vehicle that's covered in that. A little bit of a generalization of the liability. Whatever is involved in that particular BOP product is what is going to be the case there. So you got to look at it that way. It protects. What is the business property? Well, it's going to protect your business is maybe the building, or whatever's inside the building, like your own personal property, like your furniture, like whatever tools or equipment that you might have. There was a situation or scenario where I was approached by an individual who, brought me their policy, and it was a BOP policy, a business owner policy. And just going through some of the pages of the information, it didn't strike me any weird at the point, but if it wasn't for a prior conversation just prior to the individual bringing me their paperwork, I wouldn't have thought twice about this. But the individual had bragged that they just purchased it was about a good 10 pieces of furniture and each piece of furniture cost $8,000 a piece, and there was 10 of them. So the individual was very proud that the fact that I just recently bought 10 pieces of this property for $8,000 a piece. And it just stuck in the back of my mind. But when the following time we had met, the individual brought me the policy, and we were looking through the paperwork, and in this BOP policy, it referenced you are covered for $5,000 worth of furniture. And when I read that and said, this is something called underinsured. You don't have enough insurance in case of a situation. You should go back to wherever you got this policy to see if you can amend this policy or change this policy up with an endorsement or something to add more coverage, because it's not going to cover you in case of any kind of loss or something. I say this to you because, ironic enough, within a month and a half's time, the business itself, something happened within the business that there was a massive fire that occurred overnight. And with that fire, the entire interior of the business just went up in smoke. And that business was adjacent to another business where that secondary business that was on the side, not the individual that we're talking about, but the location next to them was selling wine, selling alcohol and wine. And when the fire touched that alcohol, it just amplified this fire to the nth degree, to a point where it wasn't just the local business that suffered the loss. It was the secondary business that was next door and the following business that was 2 bays down, 2 locations down from where this individual was. That's how massive this fire was. Crazy as it is, the person was left on the hook, where, that wine business, it wasn't their fault that this fire occurred, but they lost everything. And what did they end up doing? Obviously, trying to sue the person I knew regarding this, because it was potentially their fault that caused this loss to happen. And the secondary business, 3 doors down, 3 locations down, also tried to sue because of this. So you don't think anything of this stuff, when you're first starting it off or when you're looking at it, but losses can occur. Now, ironic enough, I had told them, go back to where you got this policy because you're not covered enough and you need to change your coverages. Well, that was a saving grace. The individual did speak with the agencies or the insurance company that they had gotten the BOP from, and they were in the process of making those changes only days and days before this major fire occurred. I know it's a little long story, but the individual was out of his work or business for more than 6.5 months. Was sued by the other individuals, and that type of coverage actually covered the entire thing. The loss of revenue, the replacement costs of all of the property that was involved, the rebuilding of the business, the rebuilding of the building itself, in terms of the outside structures and the businesses that were there attached. So you don't think that these things can happen. No one ever thinks it can happen, but it does happen, and it does happen more frequently than what you realize. And that's kind of how, that these things can crumble, Like I mentioned, so what did it do? It replaced some of the business income. So, in this case, it can actually do that. You're temporarily closed from whatever reason was involved. And the organization, the insurance company, paid for the entire thing. So it could be because of a theft, like a big vandalism that happens. It wasn't too long ago that there were a lot of riots in the streets that were going on, and something like that may or may not be the case. It may not be covered. You'd have to check with the policy to see. But imagine that. Imagine you're out of work for X amount of time. It's not hard to do with the pandemic being around, but imagine you're out of work for a long period of time, but there's an insurance company that's actually backing you and paying some of these expenses for you while you are in the process of repairing your business. Huge impact that stuff like this can happen or have. And getting specific with Nebraska here, the state of Nebraska requires that there only be two policies that are actually like mandated to have. The first one is if you operate a moving vehicle on the streets, a moving machine on the streets, you must prove that you can pay a minimum claim of about $25,000. So you can self-insure yourself for $25,000 or $50,000 worth. But you have to prove that. And sometimes you have to prove that in court in case there is an accident that's involved. So they require that you have something like an auto insurance. The second one is if you are working, if you are the owner of a business, or if you have a business and you have one employee, only one, that is not the owner or related to the owner, then you must have workers' compensation. Nebraska's Department of Labor requires that you have workers' compensation and that you prove that you have workers' compensation insurance. So, what is workers' compensation? Well, workers' compensation, it's going to cover the issues that may arise by an employee getting hurt from work. So in this case, if they're unable to work for whatever kind of reason, that they got hurt by an injury of some sort, that's where this thing kind of comes into play. And again, I've been around to see things that have happened. Contractor, as an example, this is more of a general contractor, go out and get these different bids and doing this and doing that, the tidbit stuff. Well, and the general contractor would pass on the work to another individual. In this case, that's considered a subcontractor or an independent contractor. And, the independent contractor was supposed to do some sort of project for this individual. Well, it came a point where this person grabbed an individual, gave him a job to fix a roof. So the person's climbing the ladder to get up to the top of the roof, and unfortunately the footing on the ladder gave way and the person fell from the ladder. Now, the ladder was fairly high because it was about a 2.5 to 3 story house that they were trying to do this roof on, and the person that was walking up the ladder was actually carrying some of the shingles on their shoulders. So that's kind of a crazy thing for them to do, but that's exactly what was going on. And the person slipped off the ladder, and on the fall hit the side of their neck against the side of a vehicle that was nearby, and with the impact of the fall automatically just cracked the person's neck, and the person died instantly. There was no way for this person to be saved. The unfortunate problem is, you hear this story and you think that's crazy, but the person walking up that ladder wasn't thinking that this is a crazy thing. They were just thinking they just need to feed their family. So the male that passed away was a father of 4 children that were involved. and now the mother of the children is a widow, and has to raise these 4 children for the rest of her life without their father, or those kids are never going to see their father again alive. And you'd think that something could be prevented, but things just happen. Things just automatically happen, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why. Here's the problem. That general contractor had called me up to say, I need some help. I need to know, what can I do? And I said, well, what's going on? And he had told me what had happened. And I said to them, well, are they an employee of yours, or are they a subcontractor like you're saying? And he says, well, I would pick them up from work. I would take them to the job sites. I would tell them what to do. I would give them the materials. I'd give them the process. And I said, sir, you have a bigger problem than what you think. And the reason why is because there's certain regulations as to who is a independent contractor versus an employee. And everything you're telling me is he's an employee. And because of that, you need to prove that you have workers' compensation. And, the person became really nervous. They didn't have any kind of workers' compensation. They were in a state that doesn't force that kind of enforcement on them. And I said, well, if you were in Nebraska, you'd have no choice. Nebraska would make you have the workers' comp insurance, and they would ask you to prove it. So I haven't heard from the individual since. I can't tell you, if they're still in business or not. But that was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit that occurred because that family went after that general contractor quite heavily. So you can see why this is something that you wouldn't want to mess with. You definitely want to have on hand workers' compensation, because you never know what can happen. Just like the fire, just like the slip and the fall off the ladder, accidents just occur on a day-to-day basis. And that workers' compensation, not only would it cover you for the damages involved there, but it actually might cover you for some of the claims that are there, some of like the legal stuff. So but that's you never know what can happen, and that's why you try the best to kind of get things out of the way and reference it to it. Professional liability, this is more, think of the doctors that are out there that are being sued for whatever rhyme or reason, or even attorneys themselves that get sued for particular errors that are made. And my apologies, I know there's misspelling on this in this slide here, but it's to cover the cost of whatever errors that may or may not have been provided because of the services that are involved. There's some nonprofits that are out there that may or may not need to have some sort of professional coverages too. So think of that's involved there. Or what about clerical errors? You don't think that could be the case, but it could be thousands and thousands of dollars that could be lost because of a simple little slip of typos and stuff. Case in point, arrows. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there, and that's how professional liability could play key in something like that. Nowadays people are so concerned about internet and how things are going around the internet and what can happen if their information is threatened or stolen. There is a dark web out there, and people maliciously want to hurt other individuals. So, you got to think of data breaches and how things are going. So any company that is involved with gathering or grabbing information, name, addresses, phone numbers, date of birth, social security numbers, bank account information, they are severely on the hook for issues when it comes to data breaches, and you never want to be on that end of the table if there ever was a serious attack or threat or some sort of issue like that. So there is some sort of insurance that's out there that can cover for data breaches in case there is a problem like that. So like I said, the insurance industry, it's old. It's old. It's been around for hundreds of years, but the computers and data security, that's not hundreds of years old. So there are incidences that cause the insurance companies to make sure they adapt and change to the times that are involved there. So you'd have to keep that in mind, and there's companies out there that assist with being able to get you back on the right path, getting in touch with all the people that were involved in that, and what are the steps to get you going again. But because it could be a very big loss. But I couldn't think of a bigger issue on a personal front of a loss, more so than this one here with a key person. You don't think of it as much, but if you were to go to or visit with any small business that's out there and say, hey, who is your number one star player in your company? I can almost tell you that there'll always be, the business owners can always point out, oh, that's my best person, or that's my, my second best person, or whatever the case is. It doesn't matter. If they are that good to you, that they matter that much, they are considered a key person or key employee within the organization. And like I said earlier, you may not think that this is out there, but there are insurances that can cover key employees. In fact, the business owners can take out policies. They can insure policies against a person or for a person that works for them for that specific reason. Think about that one for a second, because imagine you are whatever company that does some type of particular service business, and you rely on this person to bring in your top sales, salesman, or your big time executive that's involved there. Even the business owner themselves, they could be their own key employee or the key person. Imagine what would happen if they were the ones that, not to say walking up the ladder, slipping and falling kind of thing, because that's a different kind of situation. But what if they were driving just from their normal day-to-day commute from home to the job site, and all of a sudden something happens? I mean, where I was working one time, there was a bridge nearby, and I was working on the secondary floor, on the second floor, and all of a sudden I see this helicopter coming right towards the glass building. And with that thought, I was telling everybody in the building, I says, look out, the helicopter's coming. And everybody that was closest to the windows ducked because they thought the helicopter was going to hit the building. But in fact, the helicopter was taking off in a severe emergency takeoff, because on that bridge that was close to this building where I was in, there was a father and two kids driving. And the worst case scenario, the worst thing possible, the father had a head-on collision with another car opposite direction, and the father and one of the children immediately died. The father was decapitated, and the child that was in the front seat was on that helicopter ride in the hospital. And the paramedics were trying to get that child as quickly as possible to the local hospital here. Worst scenario. I know it sounds crazy to say, but to see it is even a bigger picture in my mind. But imagine that person that was driving, and I don't have a personal relationship with that person to know, but this accident occurred, and as I was reading through it, because I had seen the accident when it occurred, this person was driving their two children to school, and unfortunately the child that was airlifted did die, as well as the father, who died immediately. But you wake up in the morning one day and you're just going to work, and that's it. That's all it is. You're just going straight to work, and that could be the business owner that could be doing that. And imagine if the business owner isn't around anymore because of whatever issue? Well, this key person insurance, a check is going to arrive somewhere in some form of fashion, and it's gonna fund something if that was the case. And typically, there's some sort of contingency plan or plan of action that's put in place that kind of comes along with that. So this sometimes has some legal paperwork that would have to follow, as well as how this plays out. But not a lot of people know that things like this are out there, but it does exist, and it exists for those kind of reasons. This one, when it comes to short-term disability, so you hear of the little white duck, quack, 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 quack. He's always quacking. Well, that's kind of what certain things like that indemnity plans are about. But this is a short-term. It's a short-term disability. This is a health thing here. What can it cover? It could pay for a portion of the employee's salaries if it's involved, like a certain amount. Like if they're sick and they go to the hospital, or if they're injured of some sort, they just can't perform some of their work duties. Well, this could be, right then and there, really quickly. You get money to kind of put you back up on your feet as quickly as possible. So that's kind of what the short term kind of comes into play. But the long term would be extending this one out a little bit more. It covers a bigger portion of the employee's income, especially like if there's a serious illness involved, like cancer's kind of thing is kind of a little harder. But whatever the illnesses that are out there, you'd have to read through the perils of the policy, kind of figure out. But something that's just not work related in terms of an injury that would be covered under this kind of thing. It usually kicks on after the short term kind of runs out there, and it does run for a little longer. But if you think about 26 weeks, man, that's close to like half a year here if you're kind of looking at it in that sense. But I know I chit-chatted about a couple of things here, but you really ought to kind of put perspective in mind, kind of come to a grip with what's out there to see. You have to analyze what is a standard within your business setting. Like why is it out there? Have a better set of vision to kind of view things from these different perspectives. What is the structure of your business? Is it just you in the middle and everything surrounded by you, or are there people, processes, and certain things that are in place that kind of help you with that? The 3 Ps in business kind of thing, people, product, and process kind of thing. And how does it go on with or without you there? You have to think of those kind of things as well. And then, based on this, is there a specific niche that, something can fill the gap on, if that's the case, because you need this to kind of help out with what you're dealing with. And how do you go about, funding something like this? Well, I gave you an earlier scenario where there's $150,000 in the bank, but not everybody carries more than $1,000 in their bank account sometimes. So, you have to look at how do you fund, or how do you deal with, the day-to-day operations and still keep things afloat. So you have to, it's hard to say, hard to do, but 2 things: you have to budget within your means, and then you have to educate yourself in certain aspects, and remember that there is this give and take, whether you fork up the money to get covered, or you don't get covered and something happens. You take on that risk if things like this is to occur. So it's vital that you see what does your everyday life need in terms of business. What are the general expenses? What is your cost analysis on things like that. kind of come into play. You have to take a look at it not just on your end of it, on the business side of it, but look at it from the personal side as well. Does this impact? Is it going to help my bottom line? What if what if I carry a certain life insurance policy for myself? Is that going to help with certain kind of funding when times are tough, or whatever the case is? You have to kind of go through certain questions that are there. I mean, you should interview yourself, interview the people around you, and try to get a general perspective. Where does the scope of things lie? And then reach out to whoever's out there, in the community that, references, when it comes to these things. Like for our sake here, we're considered, I'm personally considered like an independent broker versus a captive agency. And the differences between these things is captive, they are only able to offer specifically what they carry, what they have, and what they can bring to the table. However, there as independents on the other side of this table are independents. Now, independence in this case means that they go out there and they solicitate themselves to various different companies, not just one, but multiple companies, for the sake of the person that's there, the actual client, the insured that's out there. They want to look to see what is it that insured needs, and then they look for that type of product and say, okay, that's the product that's looked for. And then they try to present that usually with multiple different organizations, different companies, and try to give you the best pricing for the bang for your buck, as they say. But go out there and take a look and see, what am I paying for in insurance, or why am I paying for insurance, and how can I maximize what's out there for, the what if cases. You should have a what if and then if then, kind of situation as well. So it's not just, one-sided, it's also double-sided as well. You got to balance yourself out as best as possible with whatever means you're given throughout your time frame. So, long story short, to be or not to be, when it comes to insurance, I definitely say, yeah, you should find a way to be insured with the kind of coverages that you essentially are going to need. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to chat regarding this. I know that there may or may not be some questions that are out there, and I might be able to give you an answer right away, or sometimes it takes a little longer to just investigate. But, there's so many facets to certain things that, as the old saying goes, Rome wasn't built in one day. However, even Rome wasn't insured, and nothing can be insured when it comes to something like that. But you can never be too cautious or be too careless and try to be overly cautious. So appreciate your time. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. And, I guess we'll just open it up to any questions that might be out there. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the chat. So if anyone wants to unmute themselves and go ahead and ask your question, you can do that. Or if you,
To be
Robert,
or not to be?
Robert, I don't know if you have your information. Oh, there you go. I think you're going to have that there. So if you guys want Robert's information, you can just simply ask him, or just put it in the chat, and he can put it in there for you. But are there any questions for Robert? It was a great presentation, Robert. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my apologies on the long-winded portions of it. And we are in a busy office, so I hope wasn't too involved or
No, I thought it was really good. I thought, and very informative. Are there any questions for Robert?
Yeah, she might have looked it up or something.
Okay. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there is. So again, I want to give thanks to Do Space for allowing us to be able to bring this information to you. I thank you guys all so much for joining us. I know your day is busy. You could be anywhere, but thank you for joining us today. And I hope you got some good information. And with that, I will just turn it back over to Bree. Bree, thank you so much again for allowing us to present today. And thank you, Robert, at Lenoma Financial Services.
Thank you.
And thank you for all of you who are attending. We do record these, so if you need to watch it again, it will be available on our YouTube channel later. If there are no other questions, I think we're going to sign off for today. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.